Good morning. It's time for the Mind War podcast again, and today we have Jean Roux and Andrew Weckler from MindRP with us. Of course, Jean is normally your host, and from time to time I'm your host as well. I'm MP Strydom, and today we're going to be talking about transition to virtual. We're in a very interesting time globally with the coronavirus fears putting us all on lockdown, and there's a lot of digital transformation going on. Some of it willingly and some of it haltingly. But even before that, MindRP had embarked on this strategy that Andrew, I think you coined the term transition to virtual for us. So why don't you start us off, if you will? Just quickly tell us who you are and then start us off and tell us what did you mean when you thought of the term transition to virtual?
Yeah, thanks, MP, and good morning, Jean. Good to be talking to you guys. So I guess, first of all, my name is Andrew Weckler, and work within MindRP. Been working here for many years and through the ranks to different pieces, mostly in the consulting end and implementing our solutions over the course of our transition from expert applications into now the enterprise domain. And now really overseeing the delivery of these projects in our client's environment. So when we were talking about transition to virtual, generally, when you look at the standard way of implementing our software, you get a team full of extroverts and you go into a mine site and you sit in front of the clients and you work with them face to face in many aspects and implement the solution. You do the various parts of the methodology to make sure that they're getting the most value out of it. So that's really the old approach, is to get on a plane and to sit in front of them. And I think when you talk about transition to virtual, with all the things going on in the world, with all the efforts over the last few years and all the talk about carbon tax and the impact on the environment and global warming, I think that there's a greater need to see how we can be all supporting those initiatives. And I think the one way is to be sitting where we are and to be able to not have to go and travel and to look for a new way to be implementing the solution. So transition to virtual is about going from the old traditional way of face-to-face and sitting at the client site to using technology and to be doing things remotely and engaging online. I think that was really the initiative on that.
Right. And John, when we discussed this, you also, before this recording, you also said, well, we also want to get our clients ready to transition to virtual by themselves. In other words, by implementing MindRP, we're also leaving our clients with that capability. Isn't that right?
MP, yes, this is the first time on this podcast that I am a guest of the podcast. So I'm not sure I've ever introduced myself properly. So now's the time to do that as a guest. I'm the head of services and value and partners, support Andrew with teams that are trained up. So transition to virtual is very much something that we needed to do. Alongside the drive that Andrew gave us and the discussions he had with his clients around when the lockdown came about what we could do and how we could do it, and suggesting that we needed to transform the teams to be able to do that. Now, MindRP, for those that have not been in our offices, it's a madhouse. It's a storming of ideas. It's the flow of ideas. I always say that I hate going on leave, because if you go away for 3 days, the company looks different when you come back. So how do you transition that to virtual?
Let's talk a little bit about the why then. I mean, everybody thinks about, doing remote meetings and working from home now. But certainly coronavirus was not the only reason why we needed to do this. Is that right? Jean, maybe you could take that. What were some of the reasons why MindRP started thinking strategically around enabling our business to become more of a virtual business?
MP, the people in MindRP are there for the vision. They are there to transition an industry. Some are natives to the mining industry, some aren't. Like myself, I'm not a native to the mining industry. I've spent time at the start of my career and now came back 7 or 8 years ago. For me, it was the allure of doing the same things that other industries have been doing. So why do we do this? We have built software, we've built a platform, and people in MindRP can't wait to see how this transition is happening in this industry. For us to do that faster and to live out, some of us have got ideas around how the world should look like, and visionaries, we need to be able to implement faster. We can't do this serially, one mine at a time. So we have started thinking about this 3 years ago about how we can do this. That included things of building a methodology to implement MineRP, packaging the value statements from hypothesis down to KPIs, implementing pieces of that in software, and constantly sticking stuff back into the software. So how do we work together? How do we do this? People like Andrew Vekela's team in Canada have been working like this for longer than us, together with the Australian and the Chile teams. So the why is much wider than COVID-19. The why that is coming to play now is that clients have to do this. And executives in MineRP that is not that digital yet have to do this. There's no other way. And this is given great drive towards transitioning to this place where MineRP can do what it wants to do for the mining industry.
So we're also living this digital transformation journey, that we're also preaching to our clients. Andrew, some of the big projects that kicked off caused us quite a lot of interesting footwork to do, because we have very, very specific skills that we have to all of a sudden make available in all of the regions where we play. Now, as someone who looks after our implementation efforts globally, you are also faced with the transportability of skills and people, and taking people away for long times from their homes. What's the impact of this virtual capability going to be? How do you foresee us acting differently as a company? Because now all of a sudden, if we're successful with this, we don't have to get our people to travel that much.
Yeah, I think, if you look at it from a regional perspective and treating each office independently, you would try to staff up that region to be able to service the demand and the clients and the projects in that area. Yeah. What this allows us to do is to really build a strong team of specialists, and we don't really care where they live. They could be in Latin America, South Africa, Australia, Canada, Northern Europe, for that matter. It doesn't really matter, because if you're working remotely, you can now leverage their skills and their knowledge and their contribution to the project without having to move them around. So from a project and access to these specialist skills, I think it's a fantastic piece that we can leverage. If you talk about the people individually, and that's the other big part. It's about, everybody strives to have a work-home life balance. Having this capability allows them to continue this work from the comfort of their own homes, to be with their support network. And, mind you, there may be time zone things that we have to deal with, but those seem to be minor when you can, wake up and see your partner or family's faces in the morning. So I think that's, from a personal side, that's definitely the benefit. And you talk about, employee burnout on some of these longer projects. It's real, and it is something that you have to be aware of and you have to manage. And I think this definitely is a step in the right direction.
So Andrew, in your region, where we've got some big projects going at the moment, when we started with this transition to virtual strategy, what are some of the very practical things that we started off with, and what are some of the strategies and initiatives that you implemented in your region?
What we've been able to do is use the technology that's available to engage with our clients on a different level. So that means that we need to carry on with the same kind of conversations we're having, but in a different medium. If you talk about a method and approach and what we've done differently, it is more about moving to an agile environment and using our 6x6 methodology or 6x7 methodology to drive the content and the direction of the project, but to use the different mechanisms within, like Agile, to have daily stand-ups, to break out tasks on a Kanban, to be able to assign Scrum, huddle around them, make sure that we all understand it, attention to blockers, and focus on fixing those to make sure that the progress still happens. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, when you talk about working remotely or not face-to-face, is having that engagement with everybody to know that we all understand what we're talking about. So I think moving it to an agile approach, moving it to a Kanban, having daily scrums, working on sprints, working on showcases, you're still getting that regular rhythm on implementing a solution, implementing tools, and getting feedback, and still moving forward without having to be face-to-face.
Jean, you're responsible for our methodologies and so on, or your team is. Did you find that we had to change our methodologies, or is it merely the mechanism of engaging in those methodologies that is changing here?
MP, we've been using Agile and Kanban in our development shop for many years, but not so much in the services, because it's very much dependent on the client's understanding of it. And lately, clients are starting to realize that you can't plan something like a mine technical systems integration to the T and do a waterfall approach on it because it's a moving, living organism. So we have had demand from clients over the last year to say, let's move there together. So this gave us the drive for it. Transition to virtual helps us with the uptake from clients around this. And so internally, we are able to transition to Agile. So on your question, yes. Agile is also the way to go and helps greatly with transitioning.
So let's jump into that subject a little bit more when it comes to the challenges and so on. We've had challenges, our clients have had challenges, so maybe I'll divide that question into two. And Jean, you could jump in and tell us a little bit about the internal challenges that we've experienced as we made this transitioning. And Andrew, maybe then you can add some perspective on the actual feet on the ground challenges that our clients have experienced when they had to get used to this way of doing business as well.
From a challenge perspective, when the actual call came to go home, I recall that I was working late trying to finish everything, get all the plans out. And when I got home, I must admit, I was quite depressed, realizing at that moment that that's the first time that I realized this is for real. We will not be able to get to the office again and, see the people that we love to work with. Actually, I got into bed and I got up. It was quite early. I got up 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and I finished all the plans and the schedules. So, MP, from a challenges perspective, we were obviously concerned that how do we keep control of it? How do we keep control over the touch points for clients? We were concerned about how we get the discussions around the water cooler going. That quick touch point, you walk past the person's office, you know that there's 3 things that he's busy with. One of them is priority. How do we get that priority out? How do we make sure, just by touching him briefly on the deliverable that he's working on for a client or internal, that is all aligned. So those are the types of challenges that we had to plan for. Your experience, Andrew, what were your concerns?
I think if we talk about the concerns, one of the biggest concerns or challenges is, can we still be effective in implementing the solution? When you don't have bodies around, you tend to think that nothing is happening. And so you always have to have these ways of seeing the work, of tracking the work. And that's what Jean was alluding to on the Kanban, and we talked about earlier. And that's probably the biggest, I would say, challenge or concern. Are we effectively implementing? And some of the things that go along with that are, from an interpersonal skills side of things, you want to be able to read body languages or little things like that. When you're communicating, when you're sharing a point, when you're debating something, you want to see how is the person reacting, to understand not just the words but also what the body is telling you. And I think those are some of the little challenges. It's new and different people are used to different ways of meeting and engaging. So I think it's mostly interpersonal, I think, from a concerns point of view and challenges.
So there was no real fear that there were things that could not be done. It is more a question of would they be done as well as it would have happened had it been face to face.
Yes. The people that we're working with are all, working in technology daily themselves. And, in some cases, some of our clients have already adopted some of the ways that we've been working. And so it does make it easier, and there's better alignment from the start. It's less about implementing the technology and more about those interpersonal elements of the project itself.
I heard you say in some of the feedback that you gave to us that there's all of a sudden more communication than what there was before, not less.
It is one of the challenges in meetings, is to be able to stick to an agenda and get the right people in there. And I think what we've heard is we have had more effective communication. It's a funny thing to go through. I was talking to one of our clients about this, and they agreed. It was like we were all now focused on the task, and because we were all also working our own diaries and trying to make sure all of the meetings were aligned, and we had our own discipline that we were trying to push in, it translated into the meeting. And people react and interact in meetings in different ways. Some are very shy and hold back and don't always say things. And you know what? It could be for some of those individuals and personality types that being behind a computer screen, whether video is on or off, allows them to come out of their skin a little bit or out of their shell a little bit. From a meeting routine, from a meeting discipline, from an effective communication, absolutely. I have seen it. It's almost 180 degrees.
It's not only the loudmouths that talk, it's also everybody else. And I think that's what enriched it, Andrew, what I see on my side.
Let's get on with it. And as we move towards the close here, let's talk about practical advice. It's not only a retrospective on MineRP and what we've done here, but some of our listeners will be going through this in their own companies, in their own businesses. And what practical advice could you offer? Maybe let's start with you, Jean, as they transition into the virtual management of their own teams and virtual engagements with clients. Do you have anything to offer for our clients?
Yeah, so 5 things. Plan it, tool it, schedule it, discipline it, make it fun. To add to those 5 things, the practical advice about all the soft stuff. Really spend time with starting up the meeting. How are you? How's it going? Are you keeping up, etc. Those things that we think that we do in the office, but we really cut that short. And also at the end to do the same thing. So around to plan it out properly about what does the reporting structure look like? When does people need to report? What is our discipline going to be? Tool it while we've put in the right technologies around it. Thank you, Microsoft. Schedule it. So we scheduled the touch points prior so that everybody knows that they can fit in all the holes with the work that they need to do. Make it fun, make it fun, make it fun. I make my meetings much, much shorter, a quarter of the duration of the meetings I normally had in the office. How do I do that? Well, I ask people to do a report before the time. 3 or 4 bullets. What are they planning next week? 3 or 4 bullets. What have they achieved this week? A bullet if they have an impediment that they want me to remove. Everybody types into one Word document their contribution. Everybody could see what everybody else has typed of the 18 people reporting to me. And that's also thank you to Microsoft around that type of technology. I don't know if the listeners knows that you can co-edit things. It makes things super fast and so much easier to bring things together.
I think one thing that we need to keep in mind is with everybody working from home, we can always look at the positives and we can say how we're being much more effective in meetings and we're getting a lot more done. I think the one thing that we can't lose sight of is that in some cases, people go to work to interact with people. They really miss that engagement. It's important as managers, as colleagues, as team members to be aware of everybody that's, working offline, working remotely, check in with them, see how they're doing, make sure everybody's feeling all right, and just be more aware of how their mental state is, if that's possible.
You'll see it. You see it in the eyes.
Exactly. That's something we need to make sure that we really focus on because some of us may be sitting in the comfort of our own homes. We shouldn't assume that everybody is in that same position.
Yeah, and I've had a barbecue with you at your house in the summers, so I know that you've got a beautiful bush behind you. I'm sitting looking at my garden, but we must realize that some of our people don't have gardens. They're sitting in flats. They can't get out. And one of our team on the first day admitted to us he didn't expect it to be so hard. And those are the types of things we have to watch out for.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that at MineRP, we've done a few really cool things and fun things to touch on your keep it fun point, Jean. I saw one of the projects had breakfast with the president online. In the Americas here, we had a happy hour or hora feliz, where we basically, it was just a social and it didn't have to be about business, but it was about seeing faces, seeing spouses, meeting people. It's just to have an engagement or interaction with more people. So that's I think that's something that's an important point.
I've planned bring your kid, dog, or whatever. Just to show off a little bit. And by the way, that breakfast was with spouses that you mentioned of one of your projects. The last thing, MP, I want to say is about the MineRP platform. We have people working on the same platform for a specific client, doing planner things or geology things or short interval control things, developments that we are doing for clients and for internal, but all working on the same platform. Last week, we had some great news from one client. He contacted his person looking after MineRP, says, from now on, I want you to stop doing all the other applications from all the other vendors. You will implement the other things about MineRP. Why did this happen? Very interesting if you walk on the trail of it. What happened was that in the office, executives and managers don't realize how much tinkering there is in every application that is not integrated to be able to make sure that data comes together. You pull people apart and all of that falls apart. The tinkering on the data to constantly work on it to make it work. And that beloved application of that one person that's giving him a right in the organization is gone. So this executive realized that this was going on. He says, now you will expedite the process of getting the other applications on MineRP as well, on modules that they did not plan to, at least in the next year, work with us on. So I think the contribution of a platform in terms of working remotely is immense.
Right, Andrew, and in your experience, has implementing MineRP made a difference in the lives of our clients from the perspective of running their mine from home, if I can call it that?
Yes, MP. So basically, to carry on what Jean just was saying, there is the tools that sit within the MineRP platform allow to have that collaboration outside of the face-to-face engagements. When you're working in these different silos, you're still dependent on shoes walking down the corridor to be able to meet and share information and collaborate. When you don't have that ability, and you take COVID-19 right now as a perfect example of that, and how different minds and clients are working from home themselves and working remotely. That level of interaction doesn't exist anymore, not the way that it used to do anyways. And so it has to be online. And when you're talking about sharing information, it is more difficult. It is now silos, and it is about trying to pull those same meeting routines. And it's not easy when you have some of the collaboration tools and the online access to the data and having everything on one canvas. It does make that collaboration a whole lot easier. Different clients have got different things, parts of the solution implemented, and some are focused on telemetry and short interval control, and some are on scheduling and even back as far as planning in the process. When you talk about that, you have the ability, and for the breadth of what the platform can provide, you can see basically your mine. You can see what's happening underground. You can see where equipment is. You can see the activities that have been planned and how well they're being executed. So you do get a good sense of what is the progress. How am I ticking along as far as my monthly plan? I think that's really what the platform allows you to do. Is you no longer have to be sitting inside the walls of the planning room or at the shaft or underground to be able to know what's going on in the mine. It is possible to do it through technology with our platform.
Let's end this off on a more personal note. John, you often ask contributors to the podcast, what's on their bedside table? What are they reading at the moment? So back at you, sir. What are you reading at the moment?
I'm going to offer you a quote today, not what I'm reading. You don't want to know what I'm reading. The quote is, being busy is the new stupid. This is a quote that was made by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. I now Googled it, and it said it's been repeated in 2019, but the first time it was said, I think, goes back to 2016. What do they mean by it? By shoveling data into spreadsheets and being busy on a spreadsheet for 6 weeks before you can give it to your mate for him to do work on it. That is being stupid, okay? So that's being busy, and being busy is being stupid. How do you like that as a quote? And my offer, that's what I'm reading.
Thank you. Andrew, and to you.
It's an interesting collection. It's an interesting collection, MP. It's a mix between some personal things and more project-oriented background things like Innovation by Design.
Nice.
By Lockwood and Papke, and there's another interesting one. I'm not sure how well I can share the title. It's a bit of it's a book by Mark Manson. It's called Everything is Effed. A book about hope. It's quite interesting. So it's a spin on some thinking books, some design books. And I think the last one that I started was, and it's maybe relevant to the things that are going on. It was actually 1984 by George Orwell.
Right. So thanks, John and Andrew, and let's sincerely hope your book's title is at least somewhat wrong. Or if it is correct, then let's hope that we find an amicable way of getting out of the situation that we're in. Yeah. And for your contribution, the both of you, to our success as a company, and B, also for the sake, on behalf of our clients, the good work that you're doing and making sure that we stay sustainable and stay adding value. Well done, and thank you as we end the show.
Thank you, MP. This was fun.
Thanks, MP. Thanks, John. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.